Okay, I've got 2 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and begin the webinar. This is Victoria Beal with the Ohio LTAP Center, and I want to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar on access management. We have as our presenter today our safety circuit writer here at the LTAP Center. It's Raymond Brushart. Before I turn things over to Ray, though, I'm going to just go over a couple of housekeeping items. First off, as you've joined the webinar, you are in a muted state. This is so we can cut down the background noise during the presentation, but we do still want you to ask questions, and we have a chat pod available for you to ask questions in. There's a circle on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you're not seeing a chat pod, you should see a circle with a thought bubble in it. Go ahead and click on that, and it'll open up your chat pod, which will say conversation at the top of it. Hopefully you see the chat pod there. We'd like for you to put questions in it as Ray is presenting, and I'll actually read those off to Ray so you can get a response to your question. The other thing is we are attempting to record this webinar. We're not always successful with the recording, so I wanted to commend you on being here because you're going to get this information firsthand and not have to worry about whether or not a recording actually worked. So sit back and enjoy the webinar on access management, and really dig in and use this information as some food for thought, because I know that it's a topic that I saw anyway as being featured pretty prominently on a list that was being circulated of intersections that are going to be worked on coming up very soon, that were a part of our entire transportation bill that passed recently here in Ohio, and access management was definitely a prominent topic on that spreadsheet that I had a ability to look at. So with that, Ray, are you ready to go?
I believe I am.
Thanks, Ray.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to all listeners. I'm kind of new at this webinar game, so I'm praying that I get through this smoothly. That we're right in the middle of my work zone season, so I'm doing a little transitioning here from work zone design to access management. So you all saw the flyer or the email about this webinar, and as you can see, the flyer definitely stressed roadway safety as a part of access management. And of course, roadway safety starts before anybody ever leaves their current location for their destination, and planning for safety is critical, as increases in population also increase the number of cars on roadways and vehicle miles traveled in a year. And so access management is definitely a planning technique that's available throughout the life of a roadway to increase the safety of the traveling public. And so let's go ahead and get started here on our short webinar today. There's different courses on access management, some of which are 3 days long, but we've got a little under an hour to talk about access management. So I guess my methodology here would be to go over first start off talking about some the basics of access management, and then go on to talk about how access management can be administered, and I can talk about a little bit about with my background or my experience in doing that when I worked for the city of Columbus, and then we'll get into the roadway safety benefits of access management to wrap things up. So it's been a while since I taught class on access management. The last time I taught this class was in 2013, and that's when we were still going by the first edition of the Access Management Manual that is published by TRB. And in 2014, TRB published the second edition of the Access Management Manual, and they also had an accompanying or companion document that went with it called the Access Management Application Guidelines. And if we did a little comparison here, in the first edition which was published in 2003, TRB defined access management as the systematic control of the location, spacing, design, and operation of driveways, median openings, interchanges, and street connections to a roadway. And they went on to say that it also included roadway design applications such as median treatments and auxiliary, your turning lanes, and the appropriate spacing of traffic signals. And so we've learned a lot since the 2003 edition, and lots of experience from all over the nation, of course. And so in 2014, with a whole bunch of new research and input from different agencies, they've redefined access management as the coordinated planning, regulation, and design of access between roadways and land development. And it goes on to say that it encompasses a range of methods that promote the efficient and safe movement of people and goods by reducing conflicts on the roadway system and at its interface with other modes of travel. These methods include improvements to benefit transit, pedestrians, and bicyclists, as well as different treatments for urban, suburban, and rural settings. So it's more all-encompassing than the first edition. So it's very all-inclusive here when we are designing driveways and roadways. We now take into more consideration into all road users. So some of the here's some examples of some access management techniques. They talk about traffic signals that support signal coordination and efficient traffic progression. We're not using the traffic signals of our grandfathers, right? Traffic signals are just like the computers from 20 years ago. They can do a lot more and move traffic more efficiently. So we need to take advantage of that on our urban major arterials. Median treatments, definitely be talking about median treatments to limit the movements that are allowed for driveways. We'll be talking about access points that are designed to minimize conflicts, and these access points are designed for smooth entry and exit at speeds appropriate to the connecting roadway. And we'll also talk about right and left turn deceleration lanes with appropriate storage links. And we'll talk about how we need to limit and separate our driveways and restrict driveways in the vicinity of signalized intersections to reduce conflicts. Some more examples are shown here. Provide an adequate network of local and collector roadways. And these local and collector roadways promote internal connections between land uses to reduce the need for driveway access to major roads and allow vehicles to circulate within the neighborhoods rather than on the arterial system. And we need to provide bicycle and pedestrian connections to maintain the continuity of non-vehicular pathways and to provide more direct connections to transit or mid-block crossing locations. So those are some definitions and examples from the new or the second edition of the Access Management Manual. So when you hear the definition of access management, it also brings about these questions to mind. What is the purpose of access management? Why is it important? Who benefits from it? And what happens if we don't manage our access? So first of all, what is the purpose of access management? The main purpose is to provide vehicular access to land development in a manner that preserves the safety and efficiency of the transportation system. And it applies traffic engineering principles to the location, design, and operation of access drives, serving activities along the roadway, and evaluates the suitability of providing access to a given road, as well as the suitability for a site for land development. And it addresses the basic questions of when and where access should be located, how it should be designed, and the procedures needed to administer your program. So in a broad context, access management is a resource management, since it is a way to anticipate and prevent safety problems and congestion. And of course, it's hard to have an access management class without these two drawings. So it's showing that how access management is a systematic way to carry out your roadway hierarchy. From a planning perspective, access management is a systematic way to do this, to carry out the roadway functional hierarchy that is implicit in state, regional, and local transportation plans. So, it's stressing the need for each jurisdiction to have their own thoroughfare plan. That's one of your basic tools to begin your access management program. So your thoroughfare plan classifies your roadways by function on the basis of the priority given to land access versus your through traffic movements. And so access management is particularly important along arterial roadways and your other primary roads that are expected to provide safe and efficient movement of traffic, as well as access to the property. And another purpose of access management is to address safety considerations. And so here's a picture showing a location that used to have a sight distance issue with corner clearance, so they actually improved that roadway to take care of those concerns. And so why is access management so important? Well, without it, roadway function deteriorates more rapidly through closely spaced curb cuts and median openings across turn lanes, as you see in that top picture, driveways in major intersections, and poorly coordinated traffic signals. So our roadways are an important public resource, and they are costly to build and to improve or replace. And in our revenue-constrained environment, effective management of the transportation system is not an option. It is essential. And it is simply not practical to allow major arterial roadways to deteriorate under the assumption that they will be replaced or reconstructed in the future. Yet many areas continue to do just that by allowing closely spaced curb cuts and the other items there on that screen, thus creating unsafe and congested conditions on major roadways. So government agencies can provide many benefits by managing the roadways with proper access management. So here's a list of things that they can provide. They can extend the functional service life of roads and highways. They can increase public safety, reduce traffic congestion, and improve the appearance and quality of the built environment. So here we have a picture in the slide that shows a nice, appealing urban central business district street with a few access management provisions included. They have a safe, clearly defined crosswalk for pedestrians. They have bicycle lanes. They have a tree-lined median to restrict left-turn movements, and they provide pedestrian refuge for a mid-block crossing and a signalized intersection. You'll also notice that there are no driveways. And some other benefits are we preserve long-term property values and the economic viability of abutting development. We improve fuel efficiency and reduce vehicular emissions. And we consolidate access roads, which is less damaging to rural landscapes or environmentally sensitive areas than numerous individual private drives. So here we show a picture of an outparcel of a shopping center, and as you see, it has no direct access to the public street. It has all internal access, so that is an example of access management. So the importance of access management, number one, an effective access management program can reduce crashes by as much as 50% and increase roadway capacity by 23%, up to 45%, and reduce travel time and delay by as much as 40 to 60%. And So who benefits from access management? Well, of course, all roadway users are going to benefit from access management. Our motorists, they'll be facing fewer decision points and traffic conflicts, which simplifies the driving task and increases driver safety. With fewer traffic delays, and they arrive more quickly at their destinations. Our cyclists, they face fewer decision points and conflicts with traffic, which simplifies the cycling task and increases safety for cyclists, and they benefit from more predictable motorist travel pattern. And pedestrians and transit riders benefit as well, because pedestrians face fewer and less frequent access points where motorists enter and exit the roadway, thereby making it safer to walk along our roadways. And they can use medians as a refuge when crossing several lanes of traffic. Our transit riders experience reduced delay and reduced travel times. They benefit from a safer walking environment, and they experience more convenient access to transit stops as connectivity of streets, sidewalks, and pedestrian ways are improved. And our business people and freight industry, they benefit from access management. Business persons are served by a more efficient roadway system to capture a broader market area, and they benefit from a stable property values due to a well-managed roadway corridor, and they experience a more predictable and consistent development environment. The freight industry benefits from reduced delay and increased safety, which results in lower transportation costs and shorter delivery times. And our government agencies and communities also benefit from access management. The government agencies benefit from a lower cost of delivering an efficient and safe transportation system, benefit from improved internal and intergovernmental coordination, and they will be more effective in accomplishing their transportation objectives. The communities receive a safer transportation system, benefit from less need for roadway widening, which causes displacement of businesses, homes, and communities benefit from the more attractive roadway corridors. And the communities help, and they help protect and preserve their investment in transportation facilities, and they may even reduce capital improvement costs for new or reconstructed roadways. So what happens if we do not manage our access? Well, as you can see in these pictures, you got an increase in vehicular crashes. You have more collisions involving pedestrians and bicycles. We have reduced roadway efficiency. We might have unsightly commercial strip development, whereas strip development is the type of commercial development where each little development has their own direct access to the major arterial. And they have a lot of signage, and it's unsightly. And we also would experience a degradation of scenic landscapes, and with the major corridors becoming more congested, and that'll generate more cut-through traffic in the residential areas. So over time, these closely spaced and poorly designed driveways make it more difficult for customers to enter and exit businesses safely, and access to corner businesses may be blocked by queuing traffic. Newer businesses seek out locations that are more attractive and have fewer access and congestion problems. Customers begin to patronize businesses with safer, more convenient access, and avoid businesses in areas of poor access design. Gradually, the older developed areas begin to deteriorate because of access and aesthetic problems, and investment moves to newer, better managed corridors. And then gradually the older developed areas begin to deteriorate because of access and aesthetic problems, and investment moves to newer, better managed corridors. These problems are symptoms of inadequate coordination of transportation and land use decisions. The resulting chain of events is a cycle of functional obsolescence along our major roadway corridors. And this is what we call the transportation and land use cycle. So the transportation land use cycle, that is what we're trying to put an end to. So with access management, that is our biggest weapon against this transportation land use cycle. So let's talk about this transportation land use cycle. But first, we'll talk about what are the 4 keys to good transportation. So we take a look here at this drawing on this slide. It shows a piece of ground that would not have any access until the new road is built, and that is how you would get your access to that property. So we define access as the ability to obtain ingress and egress between a parcel of land and the highway system. Basically, in short, how to get to and from your property via a public road. And then we have accessibility. So accessibility is an area-wide measure of the ease of travel between locations within a defined area, such as a city, state, or region of the country. It is the ability to reach a given location from numerous other locations or areas. The accessibility to potential customers is of great interest to a retail establishment. Accessibility is also the ability to reach a variety of other locations from a given location. Accessibility can be quantitatively defined and measured. And then our next key to good transportation is movement. Movement is the ability to traverse a segment of highway. As used in access management, it concerns the degree of ease or difficulty of vehicles passing by an access drive or through an intersection. And then finally, our last key is mobility. And mobility relates to the ability of persons to make trips to satisfy their needs and desires by walking or by auto, transit, bicycle, or any other combination of modes. So with our access management for our roadways that carry a lot of traffic, that are supposed to carry a lot of traffic, and also supposed to provide access to private properties, we need to have a good balance between accessibility and mobility, and vehicular flow and property access. So here's some keys to balancing transportation. First of all, it's important to note that an individual parcel of land or business can have good access but have poor accessibility, could have poor access but good accessibility, good access but good accessibility, or poor access and poor accessibility. All highways or roadways provide both movement and access. However, the two are in conflict. A high level of access results in poor movement, and high quality of movement cannot be obtained with a high level of access. Therefore, the degree to which both access and movement is provided on a given highway or roadway must be carefully managed so as to obtain the desired highway service and maintain traffic safety. So without good land use planning and access management, then we have a deterioration in the quality of traffic movement and also a deterioration of traffic safety. So this drawing here demonstrates the transportation and land use cycle. So all the problems I just discussed, the quality of traffic movement and traffic safety deterioration, are symptoms of inadequate coordination of transportation and land use decisions. And so the resulting chain of events can be characterized as a cycle of functional obsolescence along major roadway corridors. So this transportation and land use cycle begins as major improvements in the roadway systems change. So down here at the bottom we have roadway improvements, and let me get back to where I was here. So we have so this in turn results in a change in the pattern of land values and land uses. And in the absence of good land use planning and access management, traffic safety and the quality of traffic movement deteriorates. And then the need to decrease vehicular crashes and restore capacity requires improvements to the roadway system. Reconstruction to increase the level of service of an existing arterial is generally very costly and disruptive to both the public and the abutting businesses. Furthermore, the improvement in the level of service is often temporary because the improved service stimulates increased business activity. Furthermore, the shallow property depth, multiplicity of ownership, and the right-of-way limitations generally preclude good redesign of access and site circulation, even when substantial expenditures are made for reconstruction of existing streets. In order to better accommodate traffic demand, roadway improvements are required, and a cyclical sequence of events occurs, which requires continuing capital investments for arterial improvements or relocation. In the more severe cases, the arterial must be relocated due to functional obsolescence, and the process starts all over again on a new location. So that's what we're trying to avoid with our access management tools. Okay, so let's move on. There's some conflicts that we
I'm just
that arise
jump in
or
here real quick,
emerge.
Ray. I just wanted to remind everybody that if you have questions, please feel free to put them in your chat pod, bottom left-hand side of your screen. If you don't see a chat pod, look for the circle with the thought bubble in it. Click on that, and it should open your chat pod up. Thanks, Ray.
Okay. I'm trying to whiz through these the basic parts here as fast as I can. It's our foundation of access management here. Okay, so it says in the, these conflicts emerge. So let's take a look at some conflicts that emerge in the absence of effective planning and access management. So, back to the transportation land use cycle, some of you probably, a lot of things might come to your mind, but what comes to my mind is, we could take the city of Columbus as an example there. We saw the transportation land use cycle being demonstrated in the early 80s up to the early 90s, where we saw, the malls that were inside of I-270, like with the Westland Mall and Eastland Mall and Northland Mall, how those malls and the corridors themselves deteriorated, which then drove the need, and it allowed the marketability of the brand new malls that appeared on the outside of 270. So that's where the Polaris Mall, Easton, and Tuttle Mall. So that was definitely a demonstration of a transportation land use cycle. But of course, we have had some success in redevelopment of the Northland Mall with Menards and some other offices and things that have gone in there. But then, sometimes you have buildings that can block the right-of-way that's needed to allow for future widening. Let's take, for instance, Fifth Avenue in Columbus. We call that a major arterial. However, we actually call it a 42D arterial, which means divided, but there's certain sections of Fifth Avenue that we can never widen enough to build it that way, because the buildings are right up on the narrow right-of-way lines. Some other conflicts are property owners. They want to have direct access to these roadways, so they create these flag lots. That's a no-no. Here's an example of a picture of a strip mall or strip commercial development. And this isn't good because each one of these developments wants their own direct access to the arterial, which creates the need for closely spaced driveways. Here's a picture of West Broad Street, just down the road here from ODOT. It says, over time, the closely spaced driveways force more local Trips onto the arterial and traffic conflicts multiply and congestion increases. And so roadway improvements are soon needed to restore the safety and capacity of the system, and the cycle begins again. Okay, so there's our the basics of access management, what it is and what are the problems that we face if we don't have access management. So now let's move on and talk about how we can manage an access management program. And so some of the ways that we do that are with policies, directives, and guidelines. And so state and local agencies may adopt specific policies, directives, or guidelines that are directly or indirectly related to access management. A local government typically sets forth public policies and its comprehensive plan. State agencies like ODOT may establish formal agency policies, procedures, and directives under their general administrative functions. Access management issues are sometimes addressed through guidelines which do not require specific legislative authority, but which lack the mandatory status and enforceability of regulations. So then we have access management regulations. And these regulations may address various aspects of access management, such as the location and spacing of driveways, the design of driveways, spacing of median openings, spacing of traffic signals, joint and cross access requirements, interchange areas, and access permitting. These regulations may take the form of comprehensive statewide access codes or local access management ordinances, and they can be more effectively enforced than guidelines. So that's a step up from the guidelines. Another method is you can acquire access rights to properties. State transportation agencies and local governments have the authority to acquire access rights. So this is how freeways, expressways, parkways, and in some cases other types of arterial roadways are protected. The acquisition of access rights, while often costly and time-consuming, is a strong and long-lasting solution. Then we have land development regulations. And it says, in addition to access management and driveway design requirements, local agencies establish a variety of land development regulations that affect access outcomes. Zoning regulations address lot dimensions, like setback and lot frontage, lot coverage, parking requirements, landscaping, site circulation, development intensity or density, and the permitted use of the land. Subdivision regulations govern the division of the land into lots, blocks, and public ways, and can ensure proper street layout in relation to existing or planned roadways, adequate space for emergency access and utilities, and internal access to subdivision lots. Again, this is for local jurisdictions because state agencies rarely have these powers. Then we have our development review and impact assessment. Some aspects of access management are addressed at the site review stage or site plan review stage in response.
Well, it sounds like we've lost Ray there for a second. I'll have to make sure that we send him a message and let him know that we've lost his audio. So while we're waiting, Ray has stopped also sharing his PowerPoint. While we're waiting for that, I know that he was working through the introductory and beginning portion of the webinar. We are planning to hopefully host the NHI 3-day Access Management webinar course later this year, and Ray will also be teaching a much more extensive 1-day version of the course as well. I've sent him a message, so hopefully we'll have him back on here in just a second. have someone going over to tell him too. So just sit tight, folks. He'll be back here in a second. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Sometimes our...
How about now?
Oh, we can hear you now, Ray. We've got you back. Okay.
Oh, good.
Let's get your PowerPoint back up and going here too.
Yes, let's do that.
All right.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. Unless you're tethered, I think
back.
sometimes the Wi-Fi can blip, and that's why I always try to stay tethered for these events.
Okay.
So, all right, share your...
I heard it go off. I don't know what happened.
I don't know either. Share your screen.
Okay, so did I not share it?
We're not seeing anything here.
Okay.
Share a window.
I said share desktop. Is that good?
Yeah, that'll work too.
Okay, so
I'm not seeing anything yet.
I'm getting there.
Okay. As long as it's loading on your end.
How about that? Can you see it?
No, I don't see anything.
Oh.
Why don't you try share a window?
Okay.
And while you're doing that,
share a window. There it goes.
I had mentioned to everyone how you're going to be looking at teaching the one-day version of access management later this year.
Can you see it now?
I cannot. Why don't you email it to me real quick and I'll share it, and then
wait a minute.
I can just push the button for you.
It says feel free to start sharing.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing on our end too. So you went down to the share content
business
button.
Okay. Is that not it?
Did you went down to the little screen button at the bottom?
Okay.
With the arrow in it, and click share a window?
Yes.
Okay.
So you want me to do share a window there.
Yes.
I clicked on it.
And click on the window that's showing your PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay. You still can't see it?
I cannot.
What is this error occurred during your screen presentation?
Just email it to me real quick, please.
What am I emailing?
Your PowerPoint.
Okay, let me
and I will try sharing it from my end. No, just email it to me.
You can't see that?
I can't see anything, right?
Okay. Okay, so...
You gotta love technology.
I was on a roll, too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, share. I hope... Let me do it as a... Okay, here we go. Okay, I sent it.
Okay, I'm sure I'll have it here in a second.
I hope it's not too big.
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Darn it.
I'll wait for this file to come through on my end so I can share it with everybody. Do you have any good access management recommendations from your time at the city?
Yeah, I was just about getting there because I was talking about impact assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the methods of managing your access management program. So I was talking about how the larger developments are often required to submit a traffic impact study or assessment to assist the agency in its review, and comments and requirements are usually based on policies already adopted. So are you there yet?
No, I haven't received the file yet. Why don't you save it on our shared drive and I'll go ahead and open it from there.
Man. Let me try it. I should be able to... let me start all over with from my inbox.
Well, Ray's gone now. I'm sure he'll be back here in a second. I apologize to everyone. We haven't had this type of issue on a webinar in a really long time, almost 2 years. So I'm sure he'll be back here very, very shortly. There we go. I've got him back. I'm making him a presenter. I'm unmuting him. All right, Ray, try to share again. Oh, now we're seeing the City of Columbus Traffic Standards Code, but we can't hear you. So check to make sure you don't have yourself muted.
There. How's that?
We can hear you now, too. Good.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay,
All right.
so I was talking about methods of accomplishing access management. We started off talking about access management regulations, first policies and regulations, and buying access rights, land development regulations, and then I think this is where I got cut off. Are you still there?
I'm still here, and you've got 20
so
minutes
development
left in
review
this
and
hour.
impact assessment. Sometimes you have to require a traffic impact studies or traffic impact assessments. And so that was my background when both at the state level and with the City of Columbus. I started out at ODOT in traffic operations and what was called the Bureau of Traffic, and that was when we had this economic boom in Ohio. And so it was before ODOT was decentralized, so all traffic impact studies and safety studies came through our office from all over the state, unlike today. And so me and a guy named Gus Shehab, we had to develop a policy on how to properly submit a traffic impact study to ODOT, and so that was back in like 1992 or 1993, and that's when big things started coming in, like the Polaris Mall. Things were getting built to be so big that the developers were starting to build their own highway interchanges with their projects. Like Tuttle Mall was the first mall around here that the developer built the interchange himself and paid for it himself. Then in 95, I went to the City of Columbus and became their private development engineer, and so basically was tasked with the same job, and that was to come up with policy or something stronger than a policy. They wanted an ordinance on how a traffic impact study not only would be submitted, but what all had to be included in that traffic impact study, but also when we could require a traffic impact study. So, and as the whole basis of Ordinance 150-97 of the City of Columbus is passed in 1997, and that's what we even had a handy dandy user's guide that went along with this traffic standards code. And as you can see, there's a lot of people that were involved in getting this thing approved. So it took quite a while, over a year, to get all this straightened out. So we had people there from all departments of the city, and then of course people from all around I-270 from the different suburbs, and within the City of Columbus, different neighborhoods. We had developers, we had CODA, people from the building industry, even AEP, and so on and so forth. Lots of people put that met many times to get that together. But here's the basic parts of the traffic standards code. It was it says comprehensive planning focused on the variety of transportation options available to Columbus residents and visitors, including walking, bicycling, driving, and using public transportation. And a specific Columbus Comprehensive Plan goal was to provide Columbus with a balanced, coordinated transportation system which enables individuals and goods to move safely, efficiently, and affordably. And the Columbus Thoroughfare Plan, which was approved in 1993, designated the functional classifications of existing and anticipated major roads and highways and included the right-of-way requirements for each roadway type. And then this traffic standards code, it codified traffic standards to further ensure that roadways meet the transportation demands generated by new and expanded development. And so the requirement of traffic impact studies in association with major developments. And so with this city ordinance, it allowed us to require traffic impact studies before we would review and approve any rezonings, zoning variances, special permits, and preliminary subdivision plats. And so these requirements are based on the traffic generated by the subject development as a proportion of total traffic. So, and there's more in it, but that was the basic part of how it dealt with access management. So it allowed us to, work with developers and actually get them to pay their fair share for roadway improvements. Here's another resource that you're going to need, and that is the latest AASHTO Green Book. And so the 2018 edition is the latest edition. And so some things about this latest Green Book. It contains the current design, research, and practices for highway and street geometric design. Presents an updated framework for geometric design as more flexible, multimodal, and performance-based than in the past. And it provides guidance to engineers and designers who strive to make unique design solutions that meet the needs of all highway and street users on a project-by-project basis. So it's important that when you approve a driveway, you're approving not just the location, but the design, and you need this latest manual to get that done. Also included in the Green Book is how you can classify your roadways into a logical hierarchy from freeways all the way down to a local roadway or even a cul-de-sac. And so it's important that you have that book or somebody does at your agency. It says here that there's 3 steps to applying access management to a roadway system. The first step is you have to define your access management categories. That's why you need your thoroughfare plan. And then the second step is to establish appropriate access management standards for each category. And those standards decrease in restrictiveness for the lower categories. And then the third step, you need to assign an access management category to each roadway or roadway segment. So each segment of roadway is subject to that category's requirements during permitting and project development. Okay, so I wanted to move on there. After we talked, that was the management of your program, and then let's now move down to slide 139. So we can get more into some roadway safety aspects before I run out of time on you.
That would be good, Ray. You've got about 11 minutes left, and
we
haven't even given them a chance for questions. But if they have them, they can put them in the chat pod.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So access controls are essential for your driveways to be located and designed to ensure safe ingress and egress and to minimize adverse impacts on the roadway. So your access controls, here's a list: driveway location and design. Then you have your driveway spacing standards, driveway offsets and alignment, corner clearance, joint and cross access easement agreements, outparcel requirements, and then you have your redevelopment and change in use criteria on your older roadways and corridors. So access and controls are developed to utilizing the following access design objectives. Number one, of course, is to preserve the functional intent of the roadway and to minimize the difference in speed between turning vehicles and through traffic to produce a safe traffic environment, and to avoid or eliminate encroachment of turning vehicles on adjacent lanes. And then you use a combination of throat width and return radii that will accommodate the intended exit and entry operations of the selected design vehicle, provide adequate site distance for drivers exiting the site, and provide sufficient storage within the driveway for traffic entering the site to prevent spillback onto the abutting road. Let's see, what slide am I on here? That's 1, 4. And let me see here. So let's take a look at what this does for us from a roadway safety perspective. We talk about the width and turning radius of a driveway. They are a function of volume, served as well as the need to provide for efficient movement of vehicles off major thoroughfares. If driveways are too narrow or have an inadequate turning radius, vehicles will be unable to maneuver quickly and comfortably off the roadway and onto the site. And excessive radius and width could pose safety hazards to pedestrians, bicycles, and vehicles on site. So here's a drawing that shows how the size of a radius affects the incoming right-turning vehicle. So you don't want them to encroach on the exiting lane. Sometimes you have to have a radius or even have a combination of radius and flares or tapers. And then throat length. This handles the anticipated storage of entering and exiting vehicles that could conflict with the through movement on the abutting roadway, thereby avoiding on-site circulation hazards and congestion. So here's an insufficient throat length where it looks like cars are going willy-nilly once they enter the site. So you need to have it longer so you can control traffic better, like this picture does. Then we have our turn lanes that allow drivers to decelerate gradually out of the through lane and wait in a protected area for an opportunity to complete their turn. So here's a picture showing a full right turn lane versus just adding a taper. So as you can see, the right turn lane provides more storage and gets the vehicle all the way out of the way of the through lane. Then you have directional controls on your driveways. You have a full access driveway allows all the movements left in, left out, but then you have restricted access driveways that for right in, right out, right in only, right out only, or no left out. Here's a resource that helps you, and says for the guide for the geometric design of driveways from the NCHRP. That's another good resource, Report 659. Another one is driveway offsets and alignment. It's generally desirable to align opposing driveways on undivided roadways to reduce left turn conflicts. And if alignment's not possible, then safety can be improved by offsetting the driveways. So this table helps you come up with a good access spacing based on the speed of the roadway. Corner clearance is definitely a concern, so we need to make sure that we separate our driveways from roadway intersections, and AASHTO advises that driveways not be permitted within the functional area of the intersection. So that gives you some guidance there for corner clearance. And here's a good drawing showing how a left-turning vehicle is attempting to turn into a driveway that's too close to the driveway. The queue of traffic is beyond the driveway, making it impossible for the vehicle to turn in or turn out of. Joint and cross access of properties. So this improves roadway safety by reducing conflict points and separating conflict areas, and promotes development of a system of joint use driveways and cross-access easements that allow traffic to circulate from one site to another without re-entering the abutting roadway. Outparcel requirements. You want to make sure your outparcels are not allowed to have direct access to the major roadways. They should all have internal access, and you can limit the number of outparcels and the minimum lot coverage and unified parking and circulation, things like that. Another one is redevelopment and change in use criteria. It's very important, especially on your older corridors. So we want to improve the existing access during roadway reconstruction projects through selected reconstruction of substandard access points or closure of unsafe driveways or driveways that aren't even being used anymore. Another option is to establish criteria whereby existing properties must come into conformance with access management policies when they redevelop or when a change in use occurs. So in this way, the reviewing official is given authority to evaluate the site and require reasonable improvements to site access and driveway design when a change in use occurs. Okay, so then we had so that's 160. Okay, so I guess I would close with talking a little bit about 72. Let me get down here to it goes on to talk about access
you've got
management
about 3
and
minutes left.
Interchanges. Anyway, do we have any questions so far, Victoria?
You know, the only question we had was, would there be a download of your slides available for future reference after the webinar today? And I suggest we'd post that.
Okay.
So do you want to, you've got about 2 minutes left here. Do you want me to open the phone lines for questions?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, it'll take me just a second. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone. So if you have a party going on in the background like I normally do in my my office, please ask them to keep it down. And then I'll just run straight down the phone lines and unmute everybody. So it'll just take a second here. But you're welcome to, those of you who have called in, you're getting unmuted first. So if any of you would like to pose a question, you're all unmuted. Surely somebody's got a question for Ray.
So there were some methods there with regard to access management in the vicinity of interchanges about prohibiting access or driveways within a designated distance of a ramp and increasing minimum lot frontage requirements for properties abutting interchanges. And so you can adopt service road policies that support an access management plan. Everybody's
unmuted now. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Ray.
That where I got off track a little bit about when my sound was muted. I don't know how that happened.
It's okay.
But anyway, yes, I'll be. I could share these slides with you guys. All I got to do is ask, and I guess I have some speaker notes that I prepared to go with these slides. So I think those will be definitely very helpful.
Yeah, we'll put that all up online. along with a copy of the webinar recording if it was successful. So,
Okay.
questions going once, twice? Okay, it's 3 o'clock, so thank you so much. Hold on, one question. Have local jurisdictions specifically referenced the ODOT Access Management Manual in their own ordinances, Ray?
I don't believe they do, and that's mainly because a couple reasons. One is Ohio is a home rule state, and so it's up to the local government. It's your roads, so you're in charge of approving access to them. But with that said, you have to take, look at exactly where that driveway is going to be and how big of a use. A lot of times these traffic impact studies are for your larger developments, and what it could be, that their traffic is going to affect off-site interchanges or off-site intersections that would be studied as part of that traffic impact study. So those might fall under ODOT's jurisdiction, or it could fall under another nearby surrounding agency's jurisdiction, or it might be the county engineer's jurisdiction. So when I was at the city, it seemed like every traffic impact study we would have it, certain parts of it be reviewed by other agencies, and they would always be included in the meetings about that study or rezoning.
Okay. Well, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so if you have any questions you'd still like to pose, Ray and I can stay on here for a few minutes longer, but thank you everyone for participating in the webinar today, and we appreciate your time, and if the recording was successful, I'll definitely send a link out to everyone. All right, anybody else have questions?
I'm not in a hurry, I can stick around.
Going once? Twice? Okay. Sounds good. I'll send you Ray's email address too, in case you think of them after the fact. Thank you, everyone.